Tim. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
That's awesome, man. Hey, well, thank you for taking the time to come here. There are so many people that I've looked up to over the years in this community, and I've known of you for about 10 years. I was shopping around for some work to do stuff at the house. But then when I look deeper into what you do, you seem more like a corporate to corporate type of operation, much less what I was looking for at the time. But I got the treat to hear you at a chamber breakfast here not too long ago, maybe a year ago. And that's the first time I heard the majority of your story. And full disclosure, we get to work together on some projects that we're working on right now with some stuff that we're doing. And I'm really excited about that, to be closer to you and to watch you operate and to see your company from a different perspective than most people get to see. And I think it's a huge treat. As from one entrepreneur to the next, I get jazzed up about that, right? But during that, I've been able to learn even more about you, which is, man, it's just amazing to me how from the left and to the right of us, how we have all the people that we need to build our network and to build a better future all around us. And that's why we do this podcast. We want to show people here in Harvey County the talent we have, the individuals that are here, people that are open to have a cup of coffee with you and just share, right? If you're an action-oriented person, so many people will lend time to you if you're serious about what you want to do and where you want to go. And so thank you for being an inspiration to me and for being who you are for this community. And so to start off, can you just share a little bit about who you are for those that don't know you?
I'm Tim SWEIGART. I am the owner CEO of Kansas Electric. And I have a family, my wife, Mary Jean, and we have 4 children. They're grown, not in the house anymore. 13 grandchildren as of just a few months ago. So we have been very blessed. We love family time. We love to spend time together. And I very much enjoy life.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for that introduction. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take us into what I call the Mad Minute. So I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions to get us warmed up. So my first question, what's your favorite color?
Green.
Green. Tell me why green.
Well, it used to be blue, but there's something about life that's represented in green. Just as the season is now spring, I love green because it represents new life.
Nice. I like that. That's cool. So if you had a choice between a muscle car or a pickup truck, what would you choose?
Oh, pickup truck all the way. I love function, and I love things that will get me what I need. Muscle cars are cool, and actually I have a Ford Gran Torino 73.
Nice.
But pickup truck all the way because you have so much versatility and you can get things done.
Absolutely. I'm actually looking for one right now. So I get that.
Good luck.
Especially in my line of work, we need trucks all the time. So yeah, and the prices have gone so far up. It's unbelievable. So the next question I have for you, what is your favorite meal? And if you could keep it in Harvey County, at your hometown restaurant.
I love Mexican.
Okay.
Casa Fiesta. The lunch chimichanga is my favorite. And they know me by heart there now.
Nice. Yeah. So, okay, that's awesome. Chimichanga, I'm going to have to try that sometime. Yeah. So shout out to Casa Fiesta.
Yeah.
And thank you for bringing us the business and the good plates of food you bring us. So
that's right.
I think I ate the Speedy Gonzalez, I think is what they call it.
Oh, that's good also.
It's a delicious plate. Yeah. So, well, I want to kind of get into you. If I knew you as a kiddo, let's just go back to like elementary, middle school. Who was Tim?
Oh, my, that's a great question. So my family moved in 1960 to a city called Saginaw, Michigan, near Detroit, from a very rural area in rural Iowa. And so as a kid, I was this white kid in an all-black neighborhood, kind of an unusual setting, farm to city, white neighborhood to very much black neighborhood. So I was at a point where I didn't really know who Tim was because there was a very challenging identity crisis that happened during that move. And my dad was a pastor of a small church there in the inner city. We called it the Hood. And I was trying to figure out, how do I navigate in this area? And as a 5-year-old kid, of course, you don't think too deeply about identity, but I had a lot of fear about who is this white kid going to be in this neighborhood.
So from farm to hood. So I grew up in the hood, and now that I live on a farm, the kind of opposite, but older. with more tools, it's still
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
So I can imagine what that was like for you.
Yeah, that was challenging. I think though that there was some good parts to that challenge. One is that it caused me to learn some really street smarts quickly. And when I say street smarts, I mean knowing how to navigate conversations, knowing how where to avoid and what to lean into, who you can trust, who you maybe want to be a little skeptical of.
Absolutely. Well, great lessons. And looking back, when do you say you started picking up that that's what it gave you and lent to you? What stage in your life?
I think when I was a teenager, we lived in the hood for about 12 years, and then I went to a high school, which is also mostly black high school. And during my sophomore year in high school, we had a school. Our school was 2,500 students, and in my class there was 600 students in my class. So during that time, there was a riot, and I had gotten some physical damage done to me because I was the wrong color, even though I rode on the bus with some of these same students. I think I started to see that there was was at the core of some of that hatred that felt like it was towards me for being white.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to do some self-reflecting and trying to see what's similar between us that we maybe need to focus on that instead of our obvious physical differences.
Mm-hmm.
My folks gave me the opportunity to go to a different school because they didn't want me to be in that violent situation anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, I want to stick it out through my junior and senior year. And so that I can see if I can gain some of that relational trust. And boy, I'm glad I did. That was a big, big choice for my life.
Good for you. So it sounds like you leaning into hard things.
I like to think that I want to lean into the roar. In other words, there's many things in life that are hard to deal with, are hard to face, but there's a greater cost in avoiding those things than leaning into it.
That's good.
And I really feel like my childhood prepared me well to do a better job of leaning into the role.
So leaving high school, go through that, and you painted a good picture of the lessons you learned throughout that probably 8 to 12 years. What did it look like when you left high school?
I left high school and went to Heston College here in Kansas.
All right, that's how we got you.
And my folks, well, we were Mennonite in our denominational affiliation, and so came to Heston College. And I tell you what, I had to learn, what is it like to be white? I had no idea. I walked like a black person.
Mm-hmm.
I talked like a black person from the hood.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea how to relate to white folks. And that seems like a foreign concept to most, but it was real for me.
Yeah.
And I had to navigate that, but it was good. I really, really enjoyed my years at Heston College.
That's awesome. Instinctual transitions from body language to the way you speak, even coming from when I first got here to where I'm at today with the influences that I picked up here. And when I go back home, I notice a difference.
That's absolutely.
And so, yeah, you do adapt, don't you?
We have our 50-year high school reunion coming up this next spring. And I'm asking myself, is this something that I dare go back to or not? And it's kind of a challenging question.
Yeah, because there was a lot there, and I heard you at a leadership talk. You go a little deeper into some of this stuff, but that's we'll unpack that later.
Yeah.
But so you left high school, coming into Heston College. You meet your wife.
Yeah.
What did that journey look like after you two met?
Man, you know what? It was so refreshing to have a woman, a very intelligent woman, to take an interest in who I was as a person. Not for what I do, not for my looks, but to take an interest in me as a person. And I tell you, that was a refreshing time in my life to be able to develop that soul connection. Awesome. I don't know that I really ever trusted anyone that deeply before that time.
That's powerful. And then you guys end up from Heston. Where do you go from there?
So from Heston, we went to live in her neck of the woods, Mary Jean's neck of the woods, which was up in northern Minnesota near Fargo, North Dakota. Wow, what a switch from the hood to the woods. And when I say woods, I mean really woods. There was lots and lots of forests and lakes in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. And I decided I'm going to be a pig farmer. And I have really no idea to this day what motivated me to do that, other than her father was very encouraging that I learn how to make a living on the land. And I thought it sounded like a cool idea. So that's what I did. I became a pig farmer. And then we had our 4 kids on the farm, which to this day, I really look back at those days. They were some very difficult days, but there was something about character building that happened during that time.
Can you unpack that for me?
So we had bought some nice equipment and pigs, and I had little to no experience, but I was determined that I was going to make this thing work. So I worked extremely hard to develop this business as a hog farmer. I virtually went broke, and it was back in the 80s when interest was up at 16 to 18%. Really difficult anyway, and with my lack of experience, that just was really a bad recipe. But during that time, I was a part of a church community that was very supportive. I mean, I felt loved, I felt cared for. Sometimes when I was not able to take care of certain aspects of the farm, they came over, for instance, 14, 15 of the men in the church and helped me cut down trees so that we'd had firewood to heat our home. It was a real sense of community.
Nice. Nice. So where did this entrepreneurial gene, where did that hit you? Because you're doing it now at that time in your life. I mean, pig farm, all the operations, you're doing numbers, you're looking at distribution, you're doing all the entrepreneurial things that we love to do.
Yeah.
Was that there way before that?
Yeah, it was. Actually, as a 12-year-old, I had a paper route in the hood where I had 130 customers. And every day, I would deliver papers to their front porch.
Interesting.
And I'd have to collect the money for these papers every Saturday, 65 cents a week. And so going in front of these customers, and some of them didn't have the money, I'd have to go 2 or 3 weeks before I get to collect. That came out of my pocket.
Mm.
So I started kind of getting a sense of what it was to be responsible for a very small business. That started on the paper route back in the days. Yeah. But the relationships I had with those people, they'd invite me in for barbecues. They would invite me in for their children's birthdays. I really loved the connection relationally that happened out of that.
So you had the paper route at 12 that you built 135 customers.
Yeah.
So you're already looking at building relationships. Your personalities win in there because you have connection abilities, and you get that. You're real quick with that. Did you see anything before that? Now that you're looking back,
I think what I saw is at the very core, I have always had more of a keen sense of connecting with people. It's just the way God made me. I'm a people person, hardcore.
Yeah.
And I think for great entrepreneurs, if they're not, if they don't love being around people, that's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah.
And God has blessed me with that.
A lot of lead entrepreneurs like yourself that are able to build companies like you've done. You're right. They have an ability to shift gears with people, and they really can see through quick, but they also see potential fast. But a lot of people in your position, people vie for your attention. They push to get your attention to the point where you have to be real strategic about moving to the right areas, but still caring about people. And I've seen you do that real smooth, like just in the little bit of time that we've been working together. And God, I hope I can do that too, like the way you do that.
Well, quite honestly, I haven't always been that good at that.
Okay.
Andy, I struggled. I think some of my own employees would tell you, that there's two different versions of Tim.
Okay.
Back about 8 years ago, I had a real transformation. At the core, I think there is a subject of identity that comes into play, Andy, that really can make the difference on what kind of an entrepreneur you're at. Um, See, my whole life has been a quest for identity. Uh, White kid in the black neighborhood, city boy in a rural area. Um, sometimes to not even know quite who are you, who am I, is a real quest. But I think what I see is the more I'm in tune to my own identity, maybe even a touch of emotional intelligence. How do I deal with my own emotions as a result of my identity?
Mhm.
I'm a much better leader now that I've got a better grip on who I am than I was beforehand. And if I could unpack that a little bit further,
Absolutely. Please do.
when I failed at being a farmer, for instance, I had a strong, strong drive to succeed. So when I came back to Kansas to be a part of Kansas Electric, at that time it was Harms Electric,
Mhm.
I had a strong drive, but my drive was based on being a failure and in some ways being resentful for what my my struggles have been up to that point. So I wanted to prove something. And in proving something, I sometimes would destroy people in the process because I was so driven to succeed.
Mm.
But what I found since is that if I don't face those wounds of what causes those sense of failure and resentment, then I can more tear down people than build them up. Since I have gone through a real transformational experience in my life, and I've tried now to be much more mindful. How do I build people up instead of just cover up the wounds of my own life?
Can I ask you what was the catalyst to help kind of the straw that broke the camel's back? What
Yep.
was that?
Well, I work with a business consultant, and in my conversations with him about 8 years ago, what I discovered is I had a great bank account. I had lots of good momentum going into business, building the employees from 3 employees when I started to 50 employees, but I was miserable. And I was sad and I was somewhat depressed.
Mm.
And I could not figure out what's the source of this. I shouldn't be feeling this way.
Right.
But it was the it was one of the greatest blessings in my life. It was a God thing. It was a spiritual thing because I saw that I was broken, but all these things were covering up my brokenness. All the great things that were going on the exterior, but inside there was an emptiness. So, in my quest for trying to find out the answers to what was at the core of this sadness and depression, I ended up going to an intensive psychological counseling center in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I tell you, and it was one of the toughest experiences I've ever had in my life to spend 8 days with 15 different therapists unpacking a lot of different things that were going on in my life. Especially from my childhood
Mm-hmm.
and all the fear and anger that I experienced in my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So I came to a point where I could better understand who am I as a person. And during that process, I found a lot of things to be very grateful for, even the adversities in my life.
There's that's really interesting. So you have 15 different therapists, probably all with different skill sets.
Different skill sets, unpacking different parts of my life. Yeah, it was quite an experience. Coping mechanisms. What do I do to cope with pain?
Yeah.
One of them helped me develop a timeline and history of what are the traumas that you experienced in life and what did you do with them? What were the emotions you were experiencing? What was the story you told yourself during those traumas? And what's coping mechanisms that you use to try to dull the pain? Man,
Whew.
it's not for sissies. It's not for people that are not willing to take a deep dive. But for me, it was very transformational spiritually and in business.
See, so I got to meet this Tim, where you're at today, because you've gone through that journey, but you've also probably been refining since you've done that.
Oh, all the time. There's three characteristics that I'd like to think that people would define me in, and I use it in as I hire new people. It's humble, hungry, and smart. I love those characteristics, and I love to see it in other people. I see that in you, Andy.
Thank you.
So humble to the extent that I'm always a learner. I'm curious. In this case, I was curious about why am I sad, even though everything around me looks like I shouldn't be. So to have embraced that curiosity, what can I do to get better? And that's not a once and done. It's not an one event and done. It's an everyday thing. What can I do to do a better job to contribute to the people that I love, including the business that I love? So that's curiosity. Humble, hungry. You can't do that sitting still. You have to be out there and get involved. You can't sit behind a desk and expect to achieve amazing, new, radical, great changes.
Right.
It takes hungry, putting the time in, putting the effort in. And smart means to be able to navigate, to be able to discern, to be able to see things that maybe a lot of people can't see, to be able to see under the surface what's really going on. So those three characteristics, I like to practice those every day, every transaction, every relationship, and try to find that even in other people. How can that benefit you?
That's huge. Thank you for lending that. And I'm going to love clipping that together and sharing that to the community. You said transaction, and that is, I see you being great at that part, but I also see what I see in you right now at this stage where you're at, from the little bit I've gotten to know you over the last few months, is transformational. There is a transactional side because we are entrepreneurs and we have to do what we have to do to move our systems forward. And there's a transaction there, but I see you being real focused on transformation more than the transaction. And it shows in your culture of your community and how you're giving responsibility to people around you to allow them to shine and grow. And that's got to be scary at some point.
Thanks for saying that, Andy. I think what I'm seeing in this phase of life, I'm going to be 68 in 2 weeks. What I'm seeing at this stage of life is that this business isn't just about business. This business is a platform that God has blessed me with. And transformation is probably my favorite all-time word. There is nothing to me more beautiful than seeing transformation in people, including myself. So you can be a good businessman and not do anything but add money to your bank account. I'm not really all that drawn to that being the story for me. So what I would rather do is, I think our mission statement reflects it. We exist to enhance the quality of lives for the people we serve. That's our mission. That's my mission. So that's why I do things like what I'm doing here today. That's why I speak to a lot of different groups, is I want to see if I can have just a little bit of influence on making someone's life better. And for me, a lot of times better is a deeper dive into what's really going in the heart, not in the head, in the heart.
That's powerful on so many levels, because even with youth sports and some of the other things we'll be covering through this podcast is really focusing in on teaching these tools and these acronyms and this mindset to our kiddos that are in athletes and activities, where it be choir, where it be football, where it be the chess club, where it be the swim club, right? We want to instill leaders and coaches and give them opportunities to hear from people like yourself and transfer that over to our youth, because the younger we start, the better we're going to be as a community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all that you represent and all that you do. I know we're going to do some other stuff here in the future. The Harvey County Economic Development piece is something that I'm really super curious about. But one of the last questions I have for you, Tim, and I'm kind of at the edge of my seat to hear what you have to share. What is Tim, with all the things you got, philanthropy, helping people in other countries build businesses, and being a steward of your finances by helping other people be able to multiply and provide for their families at all different levels? What are you curious about right now?
Wow. I guess one of the things I'm most curious about is to continue to unpack what is the impact of our identity on our habits and our influence on other people. And I think that we have only touched the surface of the importance of unpacking who are we really. And that's one of the hardest questions I think people have to ask themselves. We as men especially really don't do a great job of taking the time to reflect and meditate on who are we? Who am I? As a spiritual being, as a psychology being, as a relational being, it's just a difficult area for us to face sometimes because we're scared of what we might find.
Mm.
But I think there is a strong relationship on the quality and the impact of our leadership as it relates to a good understanding of our own identity.
That's huge. And as an entrepreneur, from one to another, it's hard sometimes because of how we're taught to not show a lot of things and hold a lot in and continue to, I don't like the term fake it till you make it, but man, you hear it so much in our circles. Being real with ourselves and figuring out at the core what really makes us happy. I love how you shared with us, when you had the big bank account, you had a great, striving, thriving business. And I mean, you had the team put together. You're the go-to guy for big projects in our area, in our region, probably. And here you are going, why ain't I happy? You've got an all-star wife who's your best friend and your confidant. You have, your faith is there. You have kids that you love. You have money in the bank, resources and opportunity, and you weren't happy. And that comes down to mental health and identity. And so for entrepreneurs and for anybody doing anything, are coming to the core and figuring out what makes us happy is something we don't talk enough about, and we almost hide it because it's a sign of weakness in our culture, in our community. With the men and entrepreneurs, you can't show weakness, and I wish we would frame that differently. And
I totally agree, Andy. I think that's a path towards greatness. As I think about my time in the business world, probably not that long, but I think that there's a greatness that comes with that quest for identity and purpose that supersedes our bank account and the power that can come with being a business owner.
That's awesome. Well, Tim, we're going to go ahead and close this one out. I'm sure I'll have you again. Is there any final words you have for our community before we head out?
One of the tools that I've discovered, and as I relate to people and try to find out how can I impact your life, is the tool of learning how to ask good questions. I call them second and third level questions. Not the how are yous, but what is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you're most grateful for? And I think that sometimes we need to learn how to ask good questions of people. And I'm trying to learn how to do a better job of not only asking questions, but listening to how people's heart, what was saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm on a quest with you, man. We're here together. And thank you for being a builder in Harvey County. Thank you for being a builder of people and pouring into people like myself and Matt and others that we get to learn from you. We get to work around you and with you. And that identity piece is huge. I had not talked to not one of our 50 interviews, or 55 now, have we had one other leader speak of that the way you did. And I'm really going to churn on that and dig deep on that. So thank you for leaving me that nugget. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity, Andy.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon, Tim.